FYI, the background of this gameplay is me and Liquid Elixir playing the duo Hype Cup. We ran into a lot of pro teams throughout this entire event, so it's some pretty interesting gameplay. We all know of this GMK joystick. Real quick, this is not a sponsored video. This is my 2 cents on it and what I decided to do going forward with Fortnite. This video is going to be exactly what I would do to get better at using this thing. The disadvantages are pretty easy. From first look, it might not seem worth to some of you because 1, you don't play the game that often. 2, you could be the type of person who never made a switch like this before. Changing up all your settings is something that's really hard to do in any game you touch. Main reason this video is going to be relevant to you because I'm going to tell you exactly everything you need to know so that you can make a switch as flawless as possible. If you're doing this journey with me about changing your binds, changing your input, I'm going to tell you exactly what you're going to experience so that you know exactly how to handle it. Really quick plug, don't forget to use code KenBeans in the item shop. It helps me out tremendously. Also, the merch is going to be 15% off starting from the 25th to the 29th. The code is going to be on my community page when that day comes. So my best plan to become a god using the GMK joystick. If you don't know anything about this thing, I'm here to make it simple. This device, you plug it in and it literally gives you a controller analog as you have all your keybinds on your normal keyboard. I believe that you have to literally switch up all your keybinds. Having controller movement is really important. That's why everyone downloads Wooting softwares, Keys to X softwares, and all that. I'm doing this as a little experiment to test out to see how great the difference really is. This game has been evolving so quickly, and any little advantage you can get, it's really worth it in my opinion. This video is probably going to be timestamped FYI, so if you want to switch around, feel free to. Here's me telling you about how I switched anything to do with settings in Fortnite in the past. It started out, I used to play this game on controller. I was on Xbox back in the day, all the way up to chapter 1 of season 4 of Fortnite when I bought a PS4 Pro. I knew that I wanted to get a PC and I wanted to start up my YouTube channel. 3 months went by and what I did was hook up my keyboard to my PS4 so that by the time I got to my PC, I was able to at least understand a little bit about keyboard so that way I could be more fluent in my practice. Switching the controller to my first ever keyboard game I ever touched on my PC was Fortnite. It took me a very long time to see almost any progress, but the thing was, there's so many obstacles whenever you switch inputs in any game. Looking back on it, there's definitely some things in here that I'm going to teach you about in a second. Nonetheless, I got my PC and I was finally ready to get ahead of everyone else playing the game. Starting from complete scratch with no YouTube videos that really gave a detailed explanation of how to make the switch. We all know it's Jerry and he's the homie, and I don't believe at the time that he had any videos talking about how to switch from controller to keyboard. So I was essentially trying to do this all by myself. Fast forward down the road to skip all the boring stuff, I ended up switching my edit bind, I switched some other keybinds in the game, and that leads us up to now where I'm ready to make a different type of switch, but for the better. I'm not even gonna lie with you, I think Fortnite goes up and down all the time, but it's still the #1 most played game. The hype will fall off some months and it will come back other months. With World Cup 2022 being announced, I think this is a good time. I probably should have done this earlier realistically, but I think there's no other better time to just switch something up than right now. Now that you know the backstory, I'm here to get into the nitty-gritty stuff. When you start out changing inputs, or let's just say you start out playing the game for the first time, the question remains, how did KenBeans himself try and go about practicing so that he can find the best and fastest ways possible to improve? It starts out pretty simple. I'm going to walk you through, just like I told you, my best plan. When I get that JMK joystick in my hands, this is what first step's going to look like. I'm going to sit down on my desk and I'm going to have the thing in front of me. I'm going to plug it in and I'm going to look at all my keybinds. I'm going to write down the primary and secondary types of keybinds on this game. Matter of fact, give me 1 second. I'm going to draw it up so I can talk about it. To your surprise, this might sound quick. I'm back already. What I just did and what I'm about to explain, you could take to any game, but I'm going to obviously be talking about Fortnite because this is what my channel is about. I could be missing something because I just drew this up in the matter of a minute. Ask yourself the question, what's the most important things in Fortnite? When I think primary actions, I think of things like taking out your pickaxe. I think of building, editing, taking out your shotgun in one button, scroll wheel interact and scroll wheel reset, and last but not least, the crouch button. What you have to do is that, well, let's say when I'm building, I want to have each one of those building buttons, like my floor, my stair, my wall, and my cone. I want to have those all on its own finger. So when I take out my map, I want to be able to almost press every single one of those builds as I'm holding the W key. To make it even more optimal, imagine doing all those types of builds while you're holding your entire WASD. Now that's practically impossible unless you use controller. Controller players never let go of their analog sticks, which means they can move forever and they can press every single building button. That's what I want to do with this GMK joystick. Essentially, I want everything to be on its own finger if possible. Now I'm looking at this before I even have it, so I don't think it's possible, but I'm going to see if I can find a way to make it work. On the topic of building wall, stair, cone, floor, optimally speaking, you want to be able to move forward. You want to be able to place all those types of builds on its own finger. And the last thing we have to do is edit at the same time. For example, stick with me. My current binds, I'm going to explain them to you. I can hold W and my ring finger is in charge of placing my floors. My pinky finger is in charge of taking out my cones. And then on my mouse, on my right hand, on the opposite hand, I have wall and stair. What this allowed me to do was have a button to my pointer finger assigned to pickaxe. Then I did something crazy and I used V as my edit button and I pressed that with my thumb. Thumb editing took me a while to get used to, but I did eventually. This might have been long to explain, but you see how every single time I'm building, I can have full control control over all the options, and they're all on separate fingers. My thumb does edit. My pointer finger takes out pickaxe. My ring finger takes out my floor. My pinky is in charge of cone. And then on my right hand, I have wall and stair. So when I have my map out, I should be a building and editing machine. That's what you might think, but in fact, I think you're wrong. Don't fool yourself. If I put in all this time and practice really hard, I can grind and get really good. I can get even better than what I'm at right now. But the problem is there's some scenarios in the game where right now my keybinds will get me killed. And it has physically come down to the fact that I can't press both buttons at the same time. For example, I know a lot of people on Fortnite have this problem. If you play keyboard and mouse, just look at this for a second. Very common edit in Fortnite, the top right hand corner edit. As I'm moving to the left, sometimes I want to keep moving to the left, take out my shotgun, and make an edit all at the same time. My shotgun is also bounded to my ring finger. That's the problem though, because if I want to move to the left, I also have to use my ring finger. Here's one scenario in the game that I was able to point out that literally shows you that I cannot press both buttons at the same time. But what if there was a way? What if you or I was able to find out a way where I can completely smooth out my keybind so that that situation doesn't happen? Through playing this game, you start to realize situations where if you were to press both buttons at the exact same time, maybe if you had them on different hands, fingers, whatever, that you would be way better in that situation. And maybe that could be something that's holding you back. It's not the whole reason, but that could be a part of it. At this point in time, you should be able to understand that every single important keybind should be on its own finger. Every single time I make a video like this, people always point out pros. Like I believe, for example, Clicks. He uses his pointer finger for like every single build bind. I don't know Clicks. I absolutely love him, but I can guarantee you that every single pro who has those crazy mechanics, they know that their binds aren't optimal. And I can almost assure you that if they started out on optimal binds, that they would be even better than they already are. Now just think about that for 1 second. I'm just using Clicks as an example, but if any pro were to do this, imagine if they were better than they already were. How much better do you think you would be if you had optimal binds? Don't worry about what other people do. Worry about what you think is right. Out of all those primary keybinds though, I only pointed out one example. With my keybinds at the current moment before I use the GMK joystick, I know that there's more examples. It's all about trying to limit those examples because chances are the most perfectly optimized binds are just not a thing. There's always going to be a positive and a negative, but you just have to weigh those and figure out, is it worth it? I'm being completely transparent. I don't think I've talked about specifically how I'm going to do this. To jump to that point, I'm going to get the joystick. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to analyze the binds. I'm going to try and make sure that every single bind is either on a different hand or on a different finger. I'm going to think about the scenarios in which I use those binds and figure out, is this the right key to use? That's out the way. Now we're on to the next step. You have to mentally be prepared for the amount of annoying things that's going to happen to you in this game. If you switch inputs, you're going to be dying to things that you never used to die before. You could be dying to players in Fortnite that are so trash and it's going to get under your nerves. I promise you that. You have to be okay with it and go into games knowing that it's going to happen, because it's going to happen. Usually whenever I switch inputs, the first thing I do is I grind creative for like 5 days, maybe 6 days in a row. For YouTubers, streamers, content creators, most of the times they do this off stream. The reason why you do this is because you don't want to hop into normal games, spend all that time looting, and then die because you don't remember which keybind does what. That's why so many people will grind off stream until they remember all their binds. Then once they either get so bored of doing creative or they feel really confident, they're going to step into an arena game or a pub game. They're going to slowly but surely start versing other players so they can find what they do wrong and go back more into creative and practice that. You have to set up a routine that rounds out all areas of your game. I'm going to be working on things like 90s, just doing basic double edits. I'm going to be learning how to place my builds all over again. I got to learn all my simplistic and efficient high ground retakes all over again. I'm going to put myself through edit courses. I'm going to go into the 200 pump Panville map. I'm going to try and do some realistic 1v1. I'm going to do short, quick things and quick games so that I can understand what I'm doing wrong so I can go back into creative and fix it. That's the time when I'm going to grind arena more. The reason why I think people should play arena is not to get really good at their binds and all that crap. You want to play arena to have a complete different mindset on the game. Yeah, it's good to know how you died to someone, but it's more about building confidence so when you get into team modes or solo comp events, you can fully be you and have fun on the game because you know all the things you're doing wrong. Even Clicks talked about it one time back in the day about how he always grinded arena and that's how he got so good at the game. He had his fundamentals down, he knew all his binds so well, things were clicking really fast. Then he learned how to adapt to different playstyles and fight people on the fly. Through that time, his aim got better and his mechanics got even faster because he was doing stuff in game without even realizing it. Fortnite could be boring and might be boring to some of you right now because the skill gap has has gotten so hot. People have been doing this for so long that the average player nowadays is way better than the average player back in the day. That could be the reason why the game isn't as fun for some of you, because it's just not as easy. It's been out for 4 years now. Lots have changed since the game first came out. World Cup 2022 got announced, and it's gonna be absolutely wild. I don't think people understand how big this event is, because there is people literally been made by this tournament. Google was on the map already, but when he won that World Cup, his life was changed forever. That kickstarted his career and then some. Guys, if you like this video, don't forget to actually drop a like on this video. Wish me luck and give yourself some extra luck. Don't forget to use code KenBeans in the item shop. This has been your man Ken. 100 tips and tricks video coming soon, but I will see you guys in the next video. Deuces. Peace.